big events or the cool new thing or cool people or whatever the thing is. But I just pray that we could just draw close to you and abide in you, and that anything else would come out of that. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, we are now live up on the Facebook with all of
Hi,
you
Facebook.
Acts people. Woo! Well, so today is our Shred Talk on planning events or organizing events. And yeah, so ACTS, as you all know, I'm sure, is a global network of action sports ministries. And our mission is to connect leaders who are making disciples of Jesus in every action sport, in every nation. Our goal with these Shred Talks is really to create a conversation around a topic so that we can share resources and learn together. So we would like everybody to be involved in this conversation, of course, but to better help facilitate this, we have a few representative leaders here who have agreed to talk about our topic today, organizing events. But please, if you're watching this live on Facebook with us, comment in questions, interact with us, and I'll bring some of those questions in here to our panel to talk about. So today we're talking about organizing events, but before we jump into that, I want to have each of our leaders here on our panel introduce themselves with your name, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do, especially as it relates to some of the events that you have helped to organize. Melody, do you want to start out?
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Melody. I'm the founder of Drop Deep Skateboarding, which is a skateboarding ministry here in New Zealand, and we run a lot of events. So I would go to, so we run a lot of events.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. And Tony, do you want to hop in?
Yeah, my name is Tony Feliciardi. I'm with Christian Skaters, and we help people organize events all over the world, but we also do a lot of local events here in South Florida where we live.
Awesome. You guys are short, sweet, and concise. It's great. Randy, you're up.
Tony, I thought your last name was Feliciardi. Did you change your last name in the last few years?
You can say it either way with the ch or the s.
Okay. I was just gonna say all this time I was shoot, I was wrong. Okay, my name's Randy Schroeder. I live in the White Mountain region of New Hampshire. I just moved here a few months ago. I lived 13 years before that in Denver, Colorado, and before that, Minnesota. Word up, Johnny. I work at Snowboarders and Skiers for Christ. I'm our U.S. national director and like our operations type guy over here too. And so a lot of the events that I've been involved with are things from video premieres and rail jams on like a chapter level. And then and most recently, I do more organizing conferences and international retreats and gatherings and things like that. And so yeah, more from an organizational standpoint and like a Shred event standpoint.
Awesome. Sick. Well, thank you all for being here. We constantly are putting on events in Action Sports Ministry, from small, like, local contests all the way up to gathering leaders together, bringing people together from around the world. And so we're gonna talk about organizing events, get some best practices, share some resources, and we're gonna have a fun time doing it. I want to say hi to Melanie and Josh, who have joined us here on the Facebook Live, and just say hi to you guys quick. Make sure you guys comment in questions as we go along, or if you need more clarification on something, we'll try to pull that all in. Well, let's dive into this organizing events discussion a little bit. So where do you start? Where do you start when you're planning an event? What's like the first step that you try to accomplish? And any of you can just jump in and go ahead and give us your thoughts.
I don't mind starting. So I think the first step in event planning is actually, it starts with an idea. That's the first thing, having an idea. And then the first step of action is to gain buy-in for your idea. So that, yeah, for the people that you're trying to serve.
That's awesome. How do you do that? How do you get the buy-in part? What does that look like?
You share your ideas. So you go to people that you know, you go to people. So let's say, for example, you're running a skateboarding event. You'd ask the people down at the skate park, you'd ask the people in skate shops about your idea and see what they say. And generally, you know, so you'll get a good feel whether it's going to fly or not. That's typically how I do it.
Yeah. So it's almost like you're test driving the idea with a couple of people and saying, hey, what do you think? Is this going to work? Or am I just,
would you come to something like this? Hey, what do you think? You just throw it out there and see if it catches. And generally if it catches, so you might only throw it out to 5 to 10 people kind of thing, but make sure it's kind of, it would help if it was a bit more of a, you know, a purposeful audience around the thing that you're doing, around your idea, like the theme, people in the industry even, or who want to come and be a part of your event to give you kind of a better idea. And then and if you kind of get that's okay, you know, that's not always a good sign, but then, you know, so you'll get a feel for it. And if it feels like, this is gonna fly, it only needs to be a little bit, but you'll get a feel, and I think you just run with that. And then from there you can kind of start. We'll get into the next questions, but that's where I start.
oh, Tony, Randy, you want to jump in at all? Where do you guys usually start when you're planning an event?
Yeah, I'm excited to jump in. The 2 thoughts come to mind, first of all, and this is one that I and our team is really guilty of skipping over, and one is just prayer. It's like we talk about being a people that are like, instead of doing things for God, it's like we're doing things with him, in partnership with him. And it's like and so it's one that we like write it in places to like remind ourselves, but like, hey, listen, let's just pray about this, and let's sort of discern God's will and seek him first to make sure that we're not just kind of caught up in this busyness. And so I think that's just a wonderful spot to start, that we're continually reminding ourselves that needs to be the basis. And then second, one thing I've been learning recently is it's important to stop and take a minute for your to kind of like plan out a vision for what you're hoping for. And what I mean by that is a quantity over quality sort of thing. And so like there's amazing project management softwares out there that can put up Gantt charts and timelines and deadlines, and you draw on all these contributors and all this stuff. But I like that our skate community friends were like, you know what you need is a skate park, a Bible, and a pizza, and you have, voila, you got a skate ministry. And like, you'd be remiss to bring in project management software for an event like that. And so to sort of decide like what your hope is, if this is something you're hoping to do with, it's a multi-month project and you're hoping to put the utmost quality together, and you're flying in speakers or whatever the thing is, versus of like, this is a chill night and we're hoping to just crack open the Bible with a few different people. And so to clarify in your thinking what you're really trying to do before you dive in, and like we'll kind of, and then obviously there's a whole spectrum between those, I think will help with the steps that follow.
Yeah, so like clarifying your vision and prayer. Awesome.
Yeah, I think for us, I was going to kind of say what Randy said too. It's just really knowing what you want to achieve out of the event, and who your customers are, who the people you want to reach are. And I think the most important is really knowing that first before you start. Yeah,
that target audience, like who you're trying to, bring to the event. That's good. That's awesome. How do you guys use like deadlines and checklists when you're doing event planning? Like, what's one of the first things that you set as a deadline?
I think like I like a longer amount of time to plan things, but you don't always get that with skateboarding. Sometimes we'll get notice a couple days before that there's a team coming through and they want to do something. But really, I think the first thing we always go to is who are our key people going to be to help us run the event. And that's always super important, is having a good team around you.
Yeah. And deadlines and checklists are very useful because it helps you, number one, envision your plan, because you've got like you're laying out the steps of the things that you need to do, because events don't just happen. They actually, you need to coordinate people, you need to, have an end goal, and having deadlines can help you kind of stay on track. So they're a good motivator. And and I love checklists because I always write them out like by hand, and especially around some of the things that like Tony shared, about the people that you are going to get, and that is probably one of the first things too that you'd put on there, because so but just remember, with checklists and things like that, they can change through, but it's a good tracking, kind of good motivator to sort of work through. With a deadline, it makes you kind of act.
There's so many guys that come in and they're excited about like doing a contest here at the skate park or something like that. Just young guys, and what we've learned to do is kind of enable and empower them by helping them to set deadlines and saying, okay, if you want to do this, like, yes, you need to have a team around you, and here's when you would need to, have a flyer together by, and things like that. And so it's super helpful to have those deadlines. What else do you put on the checklist? Like, what are some of the things that you put on your standard checklist when you're planning an event that you got to think through? So having a team, setting a date for the event, but what else do you need to think through?
I was, definitely when you're setting a date, that's one of the first things you need to do, but also be aware of anything else going on, especially in the industry you're working in. So make sure that there's no other contests going on, there's no other events. So that's something we always check and double check and to make sure we're not conflicting with anything.
Yeah. And
We
a
like
good
to think-
venue.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Randy. A venue is definitely one of the first things you need to put on your checklist, because that helps sort of cement the date, and kind of like you can work around that. And the venue, even in itself, would have its own checklist of things that it needs to have in order to help your event be successful or not. There's a lot of checklists.
What were you gonna say, Randy?
Yeah, it's helpful to think through like the life cycle of an event. Like, it's depending on the type of event it is, like when somebody might decide to attend this sort of event. So let's say it's for us on a context, it's a video premiere. It's the type of thing, if it's on a Friday night, somebody might decide on Thursday that they're going to attend. And so really the marketing for that might need to be live 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. And one thing we use as like really clarifying is, we use like a who, what, where, when, why. Hopefully we start with why and we know what that is. But, and so I like to use that who, what, where, when, why model in that as I'm building out the marketing material, and think, hey, when do we need this marketing to go live? All of which makes sense in the context of the event. Whereas for us, if it's the type of event that someone would be flying in for, well, flights in the United States tend to start going up about 4 to 6 weeks before the event. And so we wanted to give people ample time. So we're looking to have marketing materials, a website, things like that built out maybe 3 months ahead of time. And so that sort of, we kind of start with, hey, when would our target audience, as Tony pointed out, need to know about this? And I think like when you're starting to provide that information, it helps you like really clarify like venue, how much it is, all of that stuff. And so I think after you pick your date, like sort of like, hey, when do people need to know about this is a really big kind of milestone.
Okay, slow that down for just a second, put it into bullet points. Like, if you're planning an event, you were saying some dates of like, 2 to 3 weeks for a premiere, 3 months for, doing a conference where people are flying in. Break some of that down for me again, because that was really, really good.
Okay. So step one is, as Tony said, after prayers, you're figuring out who your target audience is. And then at that point, think to yourself, when might somebody decide that they're going to attend my event? And then work backwards from there to figure out at that point, when will I need to start promoting this event so that someone could make the decision to go ahead and attend. And from there, from when that like announcement date needs to happen, you can help give yourself timelines as far as what information needs to be clarified for that marketing material to go live. Sorry, it's motorcycle week here, and they're everywhere. Um, Harleys galore. So
That was a conflicting event. We missed the memo on that one.
exactly. So we can, next time we'll check Motorcycle Week here in Lincoln, New Hampshire before we plan the shred talk.
That's good. That's good. So yeah, checking for dates on other things, other events that are happening, thinking through marketing material and when that needs to go out in terms of, you know, getting people there. What are some other things that you put on a standard checklist of things to think through when you're planning an event? Like
Budget.
Budget, yeah.
Budget's another one. You know, you need to write up an estimated budget. You need to think about who you'd ask to be in sponsorship and in partnership with you. Other things that you'd have is like the needs of the people that are coming, you know, around their needs, like serving them while they're helping you with the event, accommodation around, if it's a, you know, if they're coming out of town, flights and stuff like Randy said. You know, you need to have a checklist around things that you need to logistically to run an event. You need to think about transport. You need to think about transport to and from the venue that you're getting. You need to think about, there's just so much to think about. Crowd control is another one. You have to think about those things when planning an event. You need to think about health and safety and write up health and safety. Depending on the event, like I'm talking like a big public event that you invite people to, you need to get council approval. You need to also get the approval sometimes of people, businesses and residential places around where you're having the event because of the noise. You need to inform people. Like there's just so many things you need to do. You need to think about rubbish. So here in New Zealand, we're really, the rubbish thing is a big thing, and like you can't. So when I remember coming to America in 2019 when you could fly across the world, and I went to the drag races in Bakersfield and I went there with my event hat on, and I was looking at logistically how they would have planned this event, and I was so like shocked because you all had these big drums with black rubbish bags for the rubbish, and everyone just put all their rubbish in. Here in New Zealand, you've got rubbish for your recycling, rubbish for your food scraps, rubbish for the landfill, rubbish for the, and you've got to have a whole plan around how you're going to manage your rubbish. Yeah. Which changes depending on the venue that you go to. So if you're running school events, for example, and it has to go all through the protocol of the school system, you know, the school protocols, you have to, can get very complex.
Yeah, definitely. And well, in each different country or city or whatever it is going to have different rules and things like that. But yeah, Tony, what were you going to say?
I mean, one thing that we really think about at the beginning is who are we going to partner with in the community? So whether that's like the skateboarding community or our local community. And so what we do is we make a community asset map. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but basically we think about what we need that's in our budget, who we have around us, who might be able to provide that maybe as an in-kind donation that we can align with to do our event. So that's also, you know, faith-wise, who can we work with that's going to be good for this project? Who's the right pastor? Who's the right, you know, the right church? Do we invite some industry companies, and what are the right companies to be involved? So we really like map that all out, even from like the food for the volunteers. Is there a local restaurant that might donate food? So just really building a map of every asset that you have in your community and who might be able to plug in best in that area.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a cool resource. Is there anything, do you have any like documents on that you could share that would be helpful? Or
I probably do. I can afterwards. I'll put that. I actually have a event checklist too. That's a PDF that I can upload on the Facebook page afterwards.
That would be incredible. That would be cool.
But I just really make a bubble map, like kind of a bubble map with here's the event, here's the different places that we can do things, and fill in the people who might be the right people. So even when you're building a skate park, there might be somebody you know in your community that does concrete or has you know, a place that provides wood. Who can we talk to first before we worry about fundraising and getting the money? Who and the community might be able to partner with us and give us an in-kind donation as an asset. I think that's really important. And then people have ownership of your event and they get really excited about it. They help promote it. They get behind it because they're part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Really,
let's talk a little bit about that. Collaborations, because a lot of events that I've seen happen, it is a collaborative effort. There's multiple organizations and people and teams that are coming together to help put on a successful event. So, how have you seen partnerships be helpful towards an event, or even hinder an event planning process? So, as you're putting together the plans, you can get too many cooks in the kitchen, or it can be really, really helpful and other people can input in. What are some of your experiences or stories around that?
I mean, for us, I think Eddie Waxer said something really good to us the other day about, do you go into a place and decide you're going to colonize it and brand it with all your information and get your name out there? Are you really there to serve the community? And so just really talking to your partners about that as you go in, that, hey, this isn't, we're here to serve our local community. Yeah, we'll share about your business or your ministry and what you're doing, but our first goal is to really serve people through this event. And I think that that's super important if you set that as a standard when people come in. But there are, there's a lot of times people come and help with the event just to get their name out, and they, are all over the place, and that's, and you just carefully deal with that. But I think the main thing is to really establish that, hey, this event is to serve our local community. To get not expect.
And that's a really good thing, because you lose that sometimes in the busyness of all your planning and your checklists and your connecting people, but it's always, and it can really hinder your event, because you're sending out a wrong message to people, and it can ruin your brand. So being a Christian organization, for example, I do a lot of things with non-Christian like people, but at the heart of Drop Deep is Jesus. And it's like, how do I protect that? And you have to protect it, and you have to guard it, and you have to make some hard decisions sometimes and say no to people whose motives or their objectives about being part of your event don't align up with that, So, because at the end of the day,
if you're doing a contest,
pardon?
if you're doing a contest with a bunch of like young kids, you're probably not having like Budweiser as the main sponsor. It doesn't fit.
Yeah. It's sometimes, depending on how big the event is too, like you can feel a lot of pressure, and like, as Christians, we have the privilege of having the Holy Spirit who gives us peace, and event management is quite stressful in itself, let alone the rest of the work life, And so when you lose that peace, it's really important to check yourself and come back to God and say, where did I lose that? Like, where did I lose that? And for me personally, this happened to me recently. It was when I said yes to partner with some people that I really love and admire, but they were not the right fit. And I had to say no, and I found my peace again. But then I was because I built this whole thing around working with them, I had to then come back to the drawing board and say, okay, Lord, let's go. What are we doing now? And he just made a way. And it was like, and there was peace on the way through it. And I think as leaders and as people that are overseeing people and projects and events and things, it's important to govern that in ourselves, govern what God's given us in that relationship, because you can get carried away. But there has been some funny stories too about learning the hard way, and partnering. And the other thing, you open yourself up. Like, so I remember once here, we've got this is a long time ago, we've got you can be very controversial, especially when you're coming from a Christian perspective. You're always going to get the religious people that are going to come and fire at you. Like, how can you partner with them? You're meant to be this Christian organization. And then you've got the non-Christian people who kind of don't want to partner with you because you're a Christian organization and you're just not cool, So you kind of got to juggle it. But it all comes back to good relationships and those common like objectives. And I remember once we got sponsorship from an outfit here we've got called Hell's Pizza, you know, and I actually had donors say to me, I will give you money if you don't get sponsorship from Hell's Pizza. And I was like, what? Like, and so it was like this conditional giving, and I just use those things as times to come back to the Lord and ask him for wisdom in those things, because you know what? And for the record, I turned the money down and I went with Hell's Pizza, even though it was just free pizzas, because you know what those vouchers did and what that sponsorship did? It actually provoked a conversation about hell and heaven and Jesus, you know? So it was like, sometimes you've got to go with what, you know, you got to get led by our Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit, sorry, yeah. So anyway, I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, no, that's good. Dylan just wrote in here, and he said that they found that partnering with the local Parks and Rec department that manages the local parks not only opens the door to larger partners, but it helps to bring awareness to the city of the difference that his organization can make in the community. And so partnerships can really help to kind of catapult in new marketing and different spheres of influence in people that are impacted by the event or by the ministry, which is kind of what you're talking about there. That's super cool. Well, let's talk about some more super practical things like tools and software. I know you guys are talking about some of those things a little bit earlier. What are some tools and software that you guys use for organizing events that you found super helpful? And then we'll talk about marketing events and tools for that, and then managing registrations. But for getting organized, what are some of the tools that you found are super helpful for organizing an event?
We use our project management software. Right now we're on ClickUp. There's other ones, Asana, you know, the kind of the classic project management softwares I think are pretty helpful. But for years and years, I still miss just using Google Sheets, Google Docs, and it's still highly effective. Like if I got some friends that are super good with Google Sheets, and you can do a ton in there just by saying, hey, here's the link, plug your info in. You know, let's say it's a potluck, you know, it's easy to pass that around and be like, hey, I dialed this in, put your name and what, if you're going to bring a pasta salad or what, you know? And so, also it's, you know, I think this is Johnny's style too, but it's also important not to overthink it, to make it more complicated and bring in some big software when what you need to get the job done is something relatively simple.
Yeah, I got on, Dylan just commented in that he uses Trello and Monday. I signed our staff up for a trial of Monday, and I took like 2 minutes poking around. It was like, this is way too complicated. I'm not using this. We use a sheet of paper with a list that we update at staff meeting every week. Keeps it simple. What about you?
Yeah, I use pen and paper too, and it's like my initial, because ideas and stuff, that's kind of what's handy. But I use Microsoft Word a lot, because you've got Excel spreadsheets, you've got the Word documents, and it's just easy here in New Zealand to kind of share those things.
Cool.
I use just Google Sheets and our notes on our iPhone so we can share them with each other. And then we tried to use Trello, but not everybody logs in and moves things where they're supposed to and marks it done. So it's just easier. We use Google Sheets, pen and paper, and then our notes on our phone that we can share. Pretty much it.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about marketing events. How do you guys get the word out about events? What software, what tools do you guys use to market or promote events that you got?
Well, the good faithful Facebook and Instagram, they're really good tools for marketing. And there's a whole world of marketing on both of those platforms. Another one, so recently I just ran an event here in Karikari, and we got a lot of newspaper coverage, which was really good. We also, so part of what, because we're a volunteer-based organization, what we do is I often just recruit young people to kind of grow their skills. So I got a young girl who loves art, loves skateboarding, to create a poster. So she created a poster and we printed them out and put them around the town because it's a small town here where the event was being held. And we just use that to on social media. We also, whoever we partner with, we also ask them to share any marketing collateral that we have. So with the school series here, all our marketing stuff goes through all the portals through the school marketing system. So in every event and every event is different, and like, because you got community events, you got school events, you got ministry events, you've got all these different events. So it can change, but the staples are definitely social media, I reckon, today. I think
Yeah.
We've
we have a
so-
website.
we've done a variety of things. Like we did a suicide prevention mental health event with some partners, and that one we like really gave it our all. And it's like there was like news stories and like Denver News like interviewing people in like print news, in paper articles. We bought ads, did paid social, organic social, all this stuff. And I feel like this is all anecdotally because I'm not a marketing expert, but it feels like the good old fashioned, like just like bringing flyers to your local board shop and posting on social media with your friends and asking your friends to share was literally just as effective. And so, you know, it's like kind of like the big, sexy, cool, like maybe I should get a billboard and buy newspaper ads and be on TV. Like that's not actually like that. I don't know. And even paid social, like I'm curious, I feel like maybe Tony or you guys have some more opinions on it. Like for our conferences, we've done paid social and it's been super cool that like every event, if let's say 150 people come, there's maybe 6 people there that the paid social like really got to them. And that's cool, but it's like, it's really not the core. And so, yeah, we tried stuff, but it feels like especially to, you know, to Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, like there's so much noise out there that like a trusted voice, like a recommendation, be like, yo, I'm going to this thing, you come in, is like what really hits at home versus like the kitschy advertising that you can pay for.
Can I just add, sorry, something that I often do with every event that I do. It's called word of mouth. And I go down to local skate parks and I just invite everyone and I tell them about my event and I invite them personally. And that is really effective too.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say is word of mouth and relationships is the most effective by far, without a doubt. Also, you know, you guys talked about social media, shops, sponsors, getting the word out as well. Email, you know, you have email lists and texts, but I get 100 emails a day and I don't have time to look through that most of the time. But also, you know, just like Randy had said earlier, is really, you know, the few days before the event really pound it in. There's so much going on in everybody's lives. Is just that last minute push is really important. And then something else that's very important is just following up and thanking people for attending afterwards, because they'll remember that.
Very important. Yeah. That follow up.
That's good. I read somewhere that an event announcement, or you haven't launched an event until you've sent at least 5 emails about the event. And I just found that really interesting because, you know, me personally, I think if I send out 1 email or maybe 2 emails, like everyone should know about it. But there's so much noise out there that you don't catch it. And we've been finding with our ministry here that parents getting kids signed up for like camp and things like that, if we hit them with some emails like 2-3 months out, that's good. You'll get some of the planners to sign up. But then if you drop some text messages like a week in advance, then you'll get a bunch more of those spontaneous ones that'll sign up for stuff. And so it's different people respond to different things. We've done some paid ads here as well, and we've done some paid video ads for like skate camps and things like that, and that it has worked for us. And we've also found that emails, if they're very, very specific, so like if we're doing an outreach at a local skate park, we'll send an email to all the skaters in that city and we'll say, hey, we're doing this thing at your skate park. And that's super effective too, because it's very personalized and it feels like you're talking to me and not just blasting it out there. So that's been cool. We use Constant Contact and a thing called Planning Center. How do you guys manage registrations for different events?
So we've been using JotForm. We use it for everything. We're running 3 city camps and a ski camp this summer, and it's all been on JotForm. It's pretty affordable. You can use it free if you only have a few forms, but we need a lot more than that. But that's been huge with us. It's really, made it easy. If you want to go even a simpler route, you can use Google Forms, and it's totally free.
When you say affordable on JotForm, like how much is that?
I mean, I think we pay like $9.99 a month for it. I mean, and that's just because we needed extra features and we have a lot of applications. I mean, we do free surf lessons every week, skate camp, we have to divide it up into different cities depending, and that way we can organize our lists really well. But yeah, without JotForm, I can search it on my phone. It's great if we have a parent that says, I registered for surf camp and we are sold out to capacity. I can look and see if they actually registered for my phone, and so can our staff. And then we can also share lists with certain people so they can look up to say, I had a group of 10 that was registering. Did they register? And I can give them access to those people without sharing everybody's personal information. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Dylan commented and said he uses Squarespace scheduling. I know a lot of people have web stores and things like that. You can get apps that are built in schedulers. Randy, what do you use?
I think we mostly, Nick does our technology stuff. I think we were using Event Espresso. There's like 2 major like plugins for WordPress, right? Johnny, you do more of that stuff. And so we used Event Espresso and it was fine. I actually really like that one. I'm having a brain fart on which one it is. That was like the event software that people were using. It's like free to use for the most basic, but you can take payments too. It's like 5 years ago, everyone was using it. Can you guys remember what that's called? This is not helpful then, sorry. I'll Google it.
Online and Cvent and all those. I mean, we use for Surf Skate Science, we use our Wix website. It has it all built in, very easy. You need a really easy website. Wix is the best and has everything built in. But yeah, it just depends on if we're doing it with Christian skaters. We have WordPress. If we do it with our local surf shop, we do something different. So yeah, JotForm's easy if you are looking for a good solution.
We use Planning Center. It's $14 a month, I think, and it's kind of unlimited stuff, and it allows users to sign up for different events. Creates a profile for them, so then they can go in and log their like change fix. It also accepts, like, you can do waivers on there, so we use that a lot. And then it has the ability to have check-ins, so your staff or volunteers can check people in on their phone, or you can set an iPad up and people can come in and click their name, punch in their phone number and check their name and click check in. So we take attendance on that for all of our weekly programming, and then we have events, trips and camps and all that stuff all signed up on there, and it keeps all of the information in that one person's profile, and it tracks it over the lifetime of that customer. So we really like that. It's more set up for like churches and stuff, but we found it to be really, really helpful. I'm gonna keep us rolling. That was some really good technical stuff. Let's talk just for a minute here about events and some of the ways that you guys use events to basically to like impact your ministry. What are some of the ways that like an event can be a good thing for a ministry or a bad thing? And you talked a little bit about it in the way that we collaborate and partner, that it can open up new spheres of influence and things like that. But how impactful are events on on making disciples?
Well, I think it depends on the event, the setting of the event. And but I've personally found events to be highly impactful in making disciples, to a certain level. And it is a long-term kind of process. Let's not forget when making disciples. So, you know, events have been really useful for Drop Deep. You know, I'm journeying with these young rangatahi, which is Māori for youth, young people. There's a little bit of cultural information for you. For 10 years now. And so like this last event that I had here, you know, I've been building relationships with these guys for 10 years. And so they were here helping, you know, giving what they can do. It's still stepping out of their comfort zone and doing things that they wouldn't find themselves doing. So we had one of the guys emceeing, and he realized he's really good at it and likes it. And so it's kind of good. So there's you know, and he's a really good skateboarder. So it's the conversations around the events. It's the meals around like outside of the event. The event is great. You turn up, you serve, and you give back to the community, but it's the things that go on outside of that. So, you know, I had like 12 skaters staying in my 90 square meter house, you know, and so it was really intimate. And but you know, you had those really good conversations, and the car trips, the rides to the events. So, and we do festivals as well, and so you stay for 4 days or for a week, setting up, running it, and then packing down. And yeah, so I find it really, really useful. And another important factor, so it's not always up to me to have to build those and disciple the people that I invite and that come and serve in our events. They connect with each other, and organically these things happen. And because what events do, it brings communities and people together. And so, you know, and when you've prayed and God's in it, you know, those things are really, really really, I think they're really, really impactful.
Yeah, that's good. Any other input? Like, some people will talk about events as like, oh, it's a flash in the pan. It doesn't really create long-term spiritual growth and things like that. How have you seen it? How have you seen it impact your ministry in a long-term way?
So,
Or maybe not.
I'll say something. So like when we started Christian Skaters a long time ago, we were in that like festival era where there were a lot of evangelical festivals, and people would share the gospel. Everybody would raise their hand, and they might get followed up with after, or they might not. And that was great. We saw so many people give their lives to the Lord, but then we saw a lot of people afterwards that were just lost and didn't know where to go, and kind of didn't have anybody investing with them. Sorry, my dog is on top of my lap right now as I'm trying to do this. But anyways, and that was great, but we learned a lot. And from there, we really focused on making sure events, we purposely had personal relationship time with people at the event. So we would tell all our volunteers, make sure you connect with 10 people tonight. Get their number, get to know them, see how they're doing, ask them how you can be praying for them if anything's going on with their life, and really take that time to really invest in people who are at the event and continue to follow up with them. And that would be their responsibility. So instead of us being responsible for following up with 300 people who raise their hand for a gospel presentation, we have 30 people, you know, going after 10 people that they're really investing in. I think that was a huge turn for us, and that made a huge difference. And because of that, now we have some really deep relationships in our community. And it doesn't mean that everybody's walking with the Lord or doing what they're supposed to, but they respect us because they know we care about them. And I think that's most important, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think a theme that I'm hearing here that I really agree with is that I think events are important, but they only go so far. Yeah, and I think of it in the terms of like in the States, like Bible camps are really, popular. And so, but for a lot of kids, you go and have this mountaintop experience, or there's just an energy, whether it's a one night event or whatever, there's an energy. And when you leave, you're kind of back kind of on your own. And so I think there are these important moments, but it sort of takes a regularity of rhythm and then a relationship and follow up. And so it's important to recognize the limitations that events have.
Yeah, they're a tool. They're not the purpose, they're not our foundation. It's a tool to reach people, to work with people, to be with people. Events are all about gathering people. And, and then it's kind of just, sticking to always going back to what it is, why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. Because events too, depending how big they get and all the attention that you can get, it can actually just derail you sometimes in your faith, and you need to be aware of that as a leader. You're not really being of any use to anybody when you get caught up in the hype of an event, because it is about people all the time. People first.
Yeah, that's good. I think that like in managing some of the competing priorities of an event, sometimes we get a little lost. It's that idea of like, well, I'm having this event, and so I've got to have 100 people there. And if I don't have 100 people there, I'm going to be bummed. And, the ministry wasn't as effective if, 100 people weren't there. Whereas, there were 3 people there and those people were impacted. So how do you manage some of those competing priorities of an event? Sharing the gospel at an event versus the athletes competing and doing prizes. And sometimes in doing contests myself, I've seen how those things can compete, or like it can feel weird to be like, all right, well, the contest is done, we're going to have the judges deliberate and we're going to share the gospel with you now, and everybody's kind of like, whoa, where did that come from? How do you manage those competing priorities of an event, sharing the gospel versus the athlete competition, or serving people and being generous with people versus cost effectiveness, different things like that?
I think one really important thing is it's also in the planning is you're going to have to come up with how you're going to measure the success of your event, and not always more people is always better. I mean, like I said, we're running 4 camps this summer. It is crazy. And yeah, it's nuts and wonderful, but when we're smaller, it's easier to manage and we do it better. So, it's just, so sometimes bigger isn't necessarily better. So like I wrote down a couple of things here is like, do you measure your success of your event by how many attendees you have? Or are you measuring it by how much money you raise if it's a fundraiser? Are you measuring it by the fact that you shared a message and you did the exact gospel presentation you were planning? Or are you really measuring it by how engaged people were and how engaged they are in your ministry afterwards? And I think that's the goal is, sometimes it might feel awkward to share the gospel and it's a strange time. So there's other ways. You just have to really be willing to be fluid and go through the event. And if you have a contest and maybe you don't have everybody's attention and like people are going to take it wrong if you come up and say this bait and switch, all of a sudden you're here, we're going to share the gospel with you. Maybe you share some other message, or you just love on the people in the area and the community there that are there. So I mean, I just think ultimately if you have your heart in the right place and you really know what your purpose is of that event, that it's going to go well. And then like Randy said at the beginning, you're really praying and really that's what you're putting first in the event. That's key.
Yeah. I want to pull in, Dylan had commented in basically that your ROI, your return on investment for an event, should be based on retention back to your ministry. So how many people then are getting involved in your ministry and engaging with your ministry, which is kind of like what you're talking about, is that it's having numbers of people who came is great, but like, how many lives are being impacted, or how many people who are pre-Christian are now getting involved in a Bible study or starting to come to, get involved in a mentoring relationship or something like that. Randy, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think I was gonna say, as far as the bait and switch vibes, as far as that, I think we can be really intentional in the planning of that, and then your messaging and kind of what you're putting out too. If you're our name of our organization is Snowboarders and Skiers for Christ, and so we think that and we really don't like to shy away from that, and we've had different people suggest over the years to change the name, and I don't think everyone should have a name that's forward. It's just I've inherited the history of and tradition of that name. But I think we can all put out vibes that are like, hey, you really probably wouldn't be surprised if we were sharing what you believe with you here. And so that way, because you don't, like, the bait and switch thing is like kind of your worst case scenario, where it's literally like there's like anger out of it. But I think like the cool thing is, I think that some of the longest history in action sports ministry is like this, it's like skate church. And there's like, I'm just, for 15 years, I think it's kind of, there's this understanding that there's the value exchange of like, listen, there's free pizza and there's an indoor skate park, and I have to listen to your spiel. And like, I understand that's part of the deal. And that's actually okay, is to just be like, listen, I understand what's going on here. I don't believe what you believe, but I'll listen to your thing. But like, at least it's like, we're clear about what's going on. And so it doesn't need to be a bait and switch. And to Dylan's point, I think it's, yes, it's important, that people are plugged in with some sort of discipleship effort. And if you happen to have a local expression of ministry that has like a hearty discipleship model built out like JSAW does, that's great. But also, being willing to be open-handed too and say, listen, there's a local church that I trust is going to do a good job, and you try to hand that off. I think that's also appropriate.
Yeah, that's good. Well, before we wrap up here, are there some resources that are out there that have helped you with planning events? Like, is there an event planning for dummies book that you found super helpful, or like, somebody that you've always looked up to and admired? The events that they plan are just always spectacular, and they hit all the ministry goals and budget goals and attendance and all that stuff. Like, what are there some resources out there that we could throw out for people to tap into to basically improve their event planning?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put that event planning spreadsheet in the Facebook group. That's a huge help. Or you could go work for a mega church for a few years and do events for them. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But yeah, I think I'm just going to say, just having a good team around you, and like you all said, having some deadlines and trying to stick to them as much as you can. But I'll put that spreadsheet in there. Anybody can use it. Hopefully that helps.
I don't have, I was like looking for it when I saw the questions come across my desk a day or two ago, but Brian at Walking on Water, and then who learned under him was Joel at Nations Foundation back then. And this was all like years ago. Now they have like a handbook that would go around that is like, hey, if you're going to show our video, this is stuff to think about, like finding a venue, like street teams for marketing, like planning a budget. Like they had a resource. Maybe we can get access to it if someone wants to email Brian or Joel, and get, it was like a package. And I thought it was so sick that there was just, it was like this, they put out the resource. Their job was making these were two video guys, the resource of this video, but they really thought through the heart of discipleship and like trying to set up people well to implement it. And so, yeah, I guess we could email them and post it somewhere.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. That'd be good.
For me, I think the Bible's a really good resource because it starts there, right? In prayer and hearing from God. And Jesus actually attended some really good events, and he also knew how to run events. He'd invite people, he'd make it about the people, and he'd meet the people's need. And I think, keeping it simple like that. But I get inspired by just going to different events and looking at it from an event management perspective on what I like, what I don't like, what I do better, what I think's done well. And those events vary, like if I go to a wedding or a funeral or a party or I don't go to many events, a festival, a concert, like the drags in Bakersfield, like, and I'm just constantly looking, because you've got, in event management, you need to stay relevant, and it is about the people, it is about serving, it is about meeting a need. And so always been mindful of that. And if you want to read, you can, but you don't have to if you're not inclined, because not everyone likes reading. Like, we've talked about spreadsheets and all these protocols and stuff, but that stuff comes as you do as well. It's like, I think back to the first time I ever ran an event, and I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never been to a skateboarding event, and I ran an event. So just by listening and seeing the need and doing what I knew needed to be done. So I just want to encourage anyone out there that thinks that, to run an event, that thinks that they can't. I'd say yes, you can.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the challenge, and I think that that's a good challenge. So we'll end on that. Just go for it. Try it. If you need some help, comment in on this group, and there's a ton of people here that would be more than willing to partner, collaborate, share resources, or help problem solve, even if you run into something as you're planning an event this summer. So that's all the time that we have for today's Shred Talk. I want to thank all of our partners for participating, and all those who are on Facebook commenting in as well. Especially Dylan, you had a lot of stuff to add to the conversation. This really is your community of peers here in Action Sports Ministry. So let's continue this conversation. So comment in, share this video with those who are on your team, so that we can all grow and really learn together, and continue to make an impact in our action sports communities around the world. Next month, we're going to be hosting a Shred Talk on global networking. So be sure to tune in for that, and we will see you next month.
See you guys.
See ya.